Okay, it's June the 17th, and this is George Webb reporting from Annapolis, and this is the film I did yesterday with Lee Stranahan that Alexandra Chalupa, this DNC operative from Ukraine, was trying to shut down. You may know Alexandra Chalupa from Michael Avenatti being her lawyer. You may know Alexandra Chalupa as taking down Paul Manafort. You may know Alexandra Chalupa as having kind of this group of hackers that she can bring in from this Crowdstrike in Ukraine, Dmitry Alperovich and that crew of hackers. You may know Alexandra Chalupa from bringing in what we call investigative journalists, 68 investigative journalists from Eastern Europe. We know that the Spanish word some people have mentioned is the derogatory term for a female person's anatomy is chalupa. And so people have commented that these were the 68 chalupas she was bringing in. And the reason why you bring in chalupas, the reason why an Alexandra Chalupa would bring in chalupas is political compromise. You go on the road, you do these tours, and then you compromise the folks, and either with blackmail or whatnot, embarrassment, pictures, etc., on their computer or their phones, and it's the compromise activity that Chalupa has been running. And the reason why I believe she targeted Lee Stranahan was because in this critical election period during May of 2016, he was on the case. He was the only reporter covering the fact that Chalupa was bringing these operatives in. Not so much the hacking operatives, but bringing in these investigative journalist operatives. And he was very close to Steve Bannon. And he was filming all these people. He did this bloody road to Cleveland. So I'll just show you the kind of the itinerary he had. Everyone probably remembers he was arrested in Baton Rouge for filming different folks. And he had his YouTube completely destroyed, all his YouTube taken away from him. And here he's talking about the bloody road of Cleveland when he was following the Black Lives Matter movement. He was tear gassed in Seattle, beaten in Denver, kicked out of the Board of Supervisors meeting in San Francisco. This is the key one I want to focus on before the arrest. The reason I believe he was kicked out of the Board of Supervisors meeting was not because he was filming illegal immigrants in the meeting, but he was filming the journalists, and the journalists were Chalupas, if you know what I mean. The 68 investigative journalists. Remember, they all come in for this tour, not just against Trump, not just to research against Trump, but they follow this tour, and they sort of become applause bots for the DNC. They're learning English. They're being encouraged by Chalupa. They're being encouraged by the Ukrainians, Leshenko, and these folks to not only be Chalupas on the campaign, but also to write these articles about police brutality, etc. And Lee Stranahan's kind of being this person who's filming everyone and incidentally filming these journalists that are there covering the story. If you remember, 10 years of Lee Stranahan's work is later confiscated and destroyed. That was on YouTube. And this is the reason I believe, because there's facial recognition and you could actually get photos of these 68 people. And this is why I believe they target Lee Stranahan with Guccifer. Guccifer is the hacking side of the DNC's operation in Ukraine. And he gets these messages. He gets messages from Guccifer, which he showed me a year later, the second time I met him. And I was immediately suspicious of the Chalupas' names. First of all, there was 3 of them, all from Ukraine, which and they didn't seem to be related. They seemed to be either hackers or journalists, fake journalists. So I immediately put 2 and 2 together and said, I don't know. I know Dmitry Alperovich. I know X-Agent is the tool that was used to hack the DNC. I know X-Tunnel was what they used to tunnel it out. And that's Dmitry Alperovich's signature, and he worked for Alexandra Chalupa. Lee, they targeted you. Lee, they targeted you, trying to get you to go to Bannon and try to get Bannon to go to Trump. Remember, this is during the campaign, May of 2016. And here's a little bit of how close Bannon and Lee Stranahan were. I'll just play a little bit of the SoundCloud.
You've stirred up a hornet's nest in San Francisco. You did it by just turning the camera on an audience that was reacting to a speech, and that audience turned out people jumped you because they had illegal aliens in the audience. Was that not what initiated this entire fiasco?
Yeah, that's right. Steve, I think they made a mistake by, this would have been like a one-day story. If I had not been thrown out, there really wouldn't have been a big story there because the vote was postponed.
And Lee believes it's because there's illegal immigrants that are there to testify. But I very much believe that when he turned the camera on these folks, he was actually filming Chalupas. And that is the 68 quote-unquote investigative journalist that Leschenko, who had brought over. Remember, Leschenko is now proven convicted of Ukraine-gate election interference. He's convicted of actually providing information about travel information to Nellie Orr about the president's first family during the campaign. So this is not speculation. And again, it would be these 68 folks that are being brought into the country that would be the illegal immigrants that they wanted to shut down. Remember again, Lee Stranahan's videos are destroyed from YouTube. Again, he is on the road with all these journalists from city to city to city. And this is why I believe he gets beat up and thrown out and gets his videos destroyed and assaulted and so forth. They don't want him on this tour. So moving forward from here, where do we go from here? Well, Lee Stranahan, if you remember, is named in the Mueller lawsuit. He's named in the indictment of the 12 GRU folks. Now, why would Mueller name Lee Stranahan in the group of the GRU that were involved in the Trump campaign? They don't want his testimony. This is an effort by Mueller to intimidate him so that he will not testify as far as who was in this group of people. Mueller is the one that connected Lee Stranahan to the group of 12 GRU agents. Now, was it were all the kids that came over, all 68 Chalupas that came over, Chalupas were all GRU agents? No, I think there's a group of about 12 that were embedded within the group of 68. The other ones were there for compromise or what have you. Maybe there was two groups of 12 from the indictment. We don't know. But the key point here is Bob Mueller has associated Lee Stranahan with the 12 GRU agents, meaning he was in their presence and he may have accidentally filmed them. And again, once we film them, we can do facial recognition, etc., and see if we can get the true identities. This is going to be the key to breaking Spygate. This is going to be the key to Ukrainegate, and that's why I covered it. He entertained the idea when I said, did Guccifer, is that a creation of the DNC to set you up because you're so close to Bannon? He entertained the idea briefly and was still talking to Bannon after that time. After that, he pretty much stopped communicating with Bannon. So I don't have all the details and have to talk to Lee, but yesterday I saw someone sent me Roger Stone's indictment, and Roger Stone asks for all 3 copies of the report of the hacking of the DNC. If you remember, the people that do the report for the hacking of the DNC is Crowdstrike, is Dmitry Alperovich. Of course, they would want to cover up their crimes. Of course, they would want to accuse a conservative reporter with going in league with a hacker to hack the DNC. Of course, they would want to bring in Bannon, bring in Trump into a conspiracy to hack, just like they did with Julian Assange, with Domscheit. Again, their modus operandi repeats itself again, and it's all we have to do is look at the metadata. The answer is going to be Chalupa. The answer is going to be Alperovich. The answer is going to be the same type of entrapment scheme by Mueller and McCabe that they did for Assange. It is going to be Guccifer is going to be a Ukrainian hacker brought by Chalupa and Leschenko.